Welcome back to another episode of Silent Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be reviewing Street Fighter from 1994. And just fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Colonel Guile and various other martial art heroes fight against the tyrant of the dictator M. Bison and his goals to reign over the world. My first pro is that this movie has a really strong star power involved. You have Jean-Claude Van Damme, Raul Julia, we even have Kylie Minogue in this movie, and we have a lot of people who are huge stars, even if back in the day they weren't, now they are. And then just moving all along, this movie is what every gamer wants to see on paper, a game made into a movie that they played. But this movie has more than that. It has cheesy lines that kind of play towards me. Some of them I did cringe, but other ones caught me off guard and I was like, okay, I saw what they were trying to do there. For example, the line when the car with the bomb truck is heading towards the tent and then one of the characters says, "Quick, change the channel," and everybody just turns around and looks at him. You know, those kind of cheesy lines that you get caught off guard, it makes the movie what it is. Also, the line that's really cheesy, Guile to all his soldiers, "You can go home or you can go with me." It seems like it was meant to be a bigger speech than that, but it's just so simple and everybody's behind him and it's just really cheesy that it kind of fits in with this movie and its perfect 90s kind of style. There's other jokes that really fall short for me, but there is some that hit and I like them, and the other ones that make me cringe, so it's a mixture of both. Also, if you're a fan of the Street Fighter game, you probably even saw the Easter eggs in the movie, going from the Capcom logo on the barrel to Sagat statue of the Buddha laying down behind him, stuff like that. And then you see little Easter eggs hidden inside the movie that makes you go like, hey, that's from the game and I played the game, so it kind of makes you feel like you're more attached to it than you really should be. Now let me go back into the star power I really want to showcase here is Raul Julia, who plays Bison. His acting here is amazing. If you know him, you probably know him from the Addams Family as Gomez, but if you really know his career, this actor is really established. He's a thespian actor, and then when you know that, it's like, why did he take this role? Like, this doesn't fit him, you know? It's like overkill for such an actor. Why did he take the role? But then when you see it, he does represent the movie. By that I mean that everybody else is basically under his shadow. He casts such a big shadow in this movie that is just him who makes the movie. And one of my favorite lines in the movie is from him when Chung-Li is telling him about like, oh, you killed my father, this and that, and then he says, I don't remember that day. To you, the day Bison went into your village was so memorable, but then for him it was just another Tuesday. That line alone makes the movie for me. His acting and his way that he played Bison, it just encapsulates everything that Bison should have been from the game into the movie. Somebody who really doesn't care about anybody else except him. He's such a cookie cutter dictator stereotype, but it does fit what the character in the game should have been. Now, moving on to my cons. The acting, except Raul Julia, but the others pretty much fell short in some scenes, especially Guile. Jean-Claude Van Damme, action-packed actor and everything, but in this movie, he kind of fell short for me. There was not a lot of vibe per se compared to the other movies, but he needed to be more of a line delivery actor. To be honest, like sometimes you couldn't understand what he was saying. And other characters, they also had their lines kind of like winged. I would say probably they were ad-libbing too much. I think this movie didn't have a script. It felt like everybody just showed up to the set and said, hey, all right, what are we doing today? Oh, this. Okay, I'm going to be this person. You'll be that person. Let's just roll with it. It seems like they were just having fun on set. Also, like I said, action scenes fell short for me. We would get really short bursts of action and then it would just die down. And to touch upon the story, it felt like there was no real story. I mean, it didn't really feel like it was a Street Fighter movie based on the game. It felt like it was a Street Fighter just by name, and the game came like on third or fourth on the list. So that's where I'm coming from. There's some scenes in here that don't really fit. Like, who was filming the van as it was going into the tent so it could be broadcasted? That threw me off. Also, when Guile is supposed to be dead and he's laying in the gurney under the sheet and waiting for Chung-Li to appear there, like, was this planned? That doesn't fit. How could he have known? How could this have happened? It just seemed to me that this movie was everywhere and at the same time nowhere, but it does redeem itself with good acting on part by Raul Julia. When you know everything that this movie went through to get made, it's a miracle that this movie was made. I kind of have to give it props for it completing its thing and being made into a movie. And at the same time, I want to say it shouldn't have been made into a movie, you know, but if we wouldn't have had this movie, we wouldn't have the acting from Raul Julia, which was, for me, was amazing. So with that, I'm going to throw it to my friend Touly and see how he saw the movie and what what grade he gave this movie.
To me, this was a pretty big film back in the day when it came out because I grew up playing Street Fighter 2. That was the first fighting game I ever played, and I was pretty young when it came out. And it was the game that not only introduced me into that genre of video gaming, but it became a staple between my friends and my cousins and I whenever we would get together. If we were gaming, I would say like half the time we were playing Street Fighter 2. So the game itself means a whole lot to me, and when I found out that a Street Fighter movie was being made, I was pretty excited. However, with that being said, there were a lot of stuff about this film that even as a kid, I found to be a little disappointing. Having rewatched the film recently for this podcast, I still feel the same way. Not to say that there weren't at least a couple of good things, and those things Sal already mentioned. Raul Julia did a pretty good job at representing his character to the degree that he brought out this dictatorship-like personality out of Bison, which captures a whole great deal of what this character is all about. So that is probably like one of the biggest pros to this film. And in fact, I feel like it's a combination of both him doing such a great job at portraying this character and just his acting in general that propelled this movie forward versus perhaps what was holding this movie back. And Sal already alluded to this too, which is the acting by the other characters in this film with the sort of vibe that I got in terms of the theme of the film. And the lack of seriousness, I would say, that was put into the storytelling and character development. I feel like I want to treat this movie more as a parody versus an attempt to really adapt a game into a movie. And even with that being said, from a very loose perspective, I realize that, and this comes from watching other video game adaptations into film, that just based on the way they're telling their story and how serious they're taking their characters and stuff, there are other films out there that treated these adaptations more seriously than what they did here with Street Fighter. And to me, it's very clear based on how often jokes were being told, how a lot of these characters did not align with who they were from the video games, aside from Raul Julia playing Bison. I don't know who the main character was in this film. I'm inclined to believe it's actually Bison because they flip-flop too much in the film between characters in this film to the point where it didn't have the centralized character and have that character be like the driving force of the film, at least from the protagonist's perspective. An example to me that kind of did that was the first Mortal Kombat film, where we knew that Liu Kang was the main character in this film, the main good guy. But as the movie progressed, we got more insight to some of the other characters, Johnny Cage, Sonya, right? But we knew that in the end, that things were building up for Liu Kang. Versus in this film, I felt like Jean-Claude Van Damme playing Colonel Gao, he was there just to make these one-liner jokes. And Ryu and Ken, until the turning point for Ryu's character at the end, their characters were so off, I feel like, based on their video game, because Ryu's supposed to be this guy who was searching for his place in the world. It's part of his reason why he journeys around the world and battle people, because he needs to discover this meaning that he's searching for, this purpose. And then Ken being this really hot-headed, rash guy, but he's a good guy, and he's a training partner to Ryu. But they made it seem like these guys were just all about the money until the final arc where Ryu has this epiphany about not wanting to leave these people behind and wanting to help them, which was trending towards what a Ryu character would be. But yeah, from the get-go, those characters weren't what I was expecting. Again, this could be said about a lot of the other characters too. I would argue though that Chung-Li's character at least felt like there was some effort in adapting her video game character into the movie, where she wanted to go after Bison because Bison played a role in the death of her father. In a way, I felt like she was the main protagonist in this film. And then as she went along trying to get closer and closer to Bison, that, she met Colonel Gao and she met Cammy and she met Ryu and Ken and all that stuff. In a way, I can make an argument that Chung-Li is the main protagonist in this film. She's like the Liu Kang of Mortal Kombat to the Street Fighter film. A lot of other stuff that didn't align with the video game. Bison's supposed to have 3 henchmen, if you want to put it that way. In the video game, it was Sagat, Vega, and Balrog. But in the movie, they made it be Sagat and DJ, and then Vega was just there because he was tied to Sagat, so I guess you could put it in that same grouping. But Balrog was missing. Like, Balrog was actually a good guy in this film, helping out Chung-Li and E Honda. I don't know why they decided to go in that direction. There was no other reason, in my opinion. Like, if they just flipped it around and not make Zangief a bad guy, then there wouldn't be any problem there. Yeah, it's just a lot of those things that raised the red flag when I noticed. Also, a lot of the fighting techniques, they weren't being being captured accordingly. I don't know if it's necessarily due to the film being produced back in the 90s. I've seen plenty of other movies with their attempts at special effects to produce like a fireball or things of that nature, but we didn't really get the famous Hadouken maneuver in this film. We saw the motion of the double palm strike. It was from Ryu or Ken. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, is that it? Is that the Hadouken? And this was me as a kid. That was also one of the things that was really missing from this film, like just iconic moves. I might have seen a couple, but with the amount of characters that were in this film that were based off the video game, there weren't enough to get me excited. Yeah, like the fighting sequences, for the most part, they weren't very attractive to me. The storytelling, it was all over the place with no centralized character. Although, like I said, I can make an argument that Chung-Li could potentially be that main character. Yeah, I just felt like this movie was more of a parody versus, like, again, I'm bringing up Mortal Kombat because I felt like that movie was more of an adaptation of the Mortal Kombat video game versus it being a parody. Again, I'm attributing this to like maybe the seriousness they were going with the film. Mortal Kombat felt like a more serious film versus this film, which was just about cracking jokes left and right and just trying to give you a sense that, yeah, this is a Street Fighter film because you know these characters, but they're not even making an effort to capture these characters one for one. Other than, like I said, Raul Julia and the effort he put into playing Bison. Again, this is speaking from somebody who grew up playing Street Fighter and loves the Street Fighter series as a video game. Would I say this movie was good? No, this movie was not good. In fact, I feel like if you didn't have any ties to the Street Fighter video game series, you would probably feel like this movie was really, really bad. For me, I would even say that as somebody who grew up with Street Fighter. If you guys are really inclined to watch a Street Fighter adaptation movie, I would actually recommend watching the animated film version. I believe it's called Street Fighter 2, the animated film, which I believe came out also in the 90s. Yeah, that film did a better job at trying to preserve a lot of the things that I would associate with Street Fighter video game. Granted, it is an animated film, and they're able to do a whole lot more stuff in that environment versus what maybe they try to do in the real life film. You know, you get your Hadoukens in there, you get your sonic booms, and again, seeing those things as a kid made me very excited about the movie already versus in the real life film adaptation where there was lack of skills, special effects, and all that stuff. If you want to avoid Street Fighter, the movie film, and go watch the animated version instead, I wouldn't hold it against you because it is 1,000 times better by far. So I'm going to give the movie a 4 out of 10. What just really did it for me was, again, Raul Julia. I think he was pretty much the centerpiece of this film, and I guess whatever effort they put into trying to adapt this film, but to me, it's just a parody. I suppose if you like Street Fighter in general and you haven't seen this film, give it a watch and just treat it for what it is, but don't expect too much from it.
I really agree with everything you said. I strongly feel that this movie is a Street Fighter movie, but not a Street Fighter adaptation, like you said. I also feel that these characters, what they could have given us was, let's see, Guile done the sonic boom, signature moves. We did see him do his backflip kick that he does in the game, but it doesn't have that impact that it had in the game, especially the sounds, use some special effects, or maybe they could have gone with the double palm Hadouken instead of having a fireball, have this energy wave, I don't know, just play into it, especially with the other characters don't really fit in. The bad guy had 3 henchmen. One of the henchmen was not his henchman. It was Chung-Li's camera guy. You know, it's like, what's going on here? Like, bro, do you even game when it comes to the director? He did the screenplays for other movies that were really great. For example, Die Hard. But in this one, he was a director and he also made the screenplay. And I was like, if you could have just picked up the game and seen that the game already established these characters with a backstory, you could have just played off of that. But no, he probably wanted to go in with a clean slate and then write his own story. And okay, but just give me some signature moves I can get behind. You know, like if I'm a kid back in the day when I saw this movie, and if I would have seen those sonic booms or the Hadoukens or any of the signature moves from like Honda or Chung-Li, I would have been amazed. I would have been like, wow, this is the greatest movie ever. And I would have basically ignored that there was no story behind it. And at the same time, now that I'm adult, I see the acting from Raul Julia, and it's basically tells me that this guy carried the whole movie by himself. And at the same time, he was dying of cancer. Now that I know all this, it just makes this movie a little higher for me, but still the same grade that Touly gave it, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. If you're a fan of Street Fighter, go watch this movie, but don't take it too seriously. Just see what it was and don't expect much. 4 out of 10 for me. So that does it for this review of Street Fighter. Please join us next time when we're going to review We Were Soldiers.
I will be the first to set foot on the field, and I'll be the last to step off, and I will leave no one behind. Dead or alive, we will all come home together.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.